lot of our conference attendees would say to us, I wish we would have this information at our fingertips within the agency so we could utilize it and access it on a daily basis. We can access it repetitively, and also we can use it simultaneously. The reason GIHAVT created this program was to bring this conference into the agencies, to the advocates who work with survivors of victimization and trauma. It helps when they have the information with them so that when a survivor that they're meeting with on a one-on-one session or in a group meeting or in a community support group, they can easily access any part of the program. Whether it's a complementary care therapy, a natural wellness approach, an independent supportive practice, or an integrative system of medicine. They can also access the lecture on the healing journey, what it consists of, its benefits, what the mind, body, and spirit connection is.
I came to know of the healing journey in September. I should say I was introduced to the healing journey in September of 2011. Patricia Hodgeness was hosting a one-day seminar. Something about it caught my eye. I attended and was very intrigued by what I heard. I knew I had survived. I was a trauma survivor, but I didn't know that I still had healing work to do. I was intrigued. There's more? It's not enough that I survived it? What, survival's not enough? There's more to it? But for years, people have been saying to me, about family, closest friends, those who love me the most, have been saying for years since the attack, you're stuck. You're stuck, Maggie. Come out of it. You're stuck. There's something that you're missing. You're stuck. And I was intrigued, and I thought, well, I didn't understand how I was stuck. Again, I'd survived. I'm a survivor, so I survived it, so I'm good. That was my attitude. I'm good. I was still seeing the world through her eyes because I had empowered her, that 15-year-old that I had been at the time of the attack. I had empowered her to be my sword and be my shield and stay out in front. I was frozen in this teenage mentality for so many years, and I'm finally trying to get out of it. Every element of the attack, the kidnapping, the rape, each element. Let's go back to the silhouette that I remember seeing when I was being raped the first time. I mean, that'll never leave my mind, but I had to somehow see her getting up from that and brushing herself off and looking down on her attacker, saying, I forgive you, it's over, I'm going free now. But the main thing about healing that had to happen for me was releasing the 15-year-old mentality. Trauma freezes you. It freezes anybody at whatever age they are when that trauma occurs. And I had been 15 years old at that point for about 17 years. Patricia knew that. My mom knew that. It's like having a self-propelled mower that won't self-propel. And no matter how much someone tries, they can't get that mower to go self-propel on its own. One of the hardest parts of my healing journey was resistance from others. It's threatening. Change is very threatening. Especially those closest to me who had kept me close to their vest. I can't let her go. Look what happened to her. particularly my mom. I can't let her go back out there. I was still living with my mom at that point. Again, I'd been 15 years old for so many years. So instead of having my own place, I'd been living in a bedroom in my mom's house. She wasn't my captor. She was just trying to protect me. There was a lot of codependency going on there. And I met a lot of resistance from her because change is scary. And it forces people to look at themselves and think, well, if she's changing, then I'm going to have to change. Because I just didn't realize how so many things from my past had affected the way I was, I want to call it, living my life. I really had just been existing up to that point, surviving and being in survival mode. And when I started to heal, I mean, think of a wound. You got to flush that wound out, and that's ugly. And it hurts, and it's just messy. And then the healing is internal. Because a survivor is always up on their toes. They're always waiting for the next shoe to drop. They're in survival mode. What's happening? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? When you start to heal, you come down off your toes, and you just start walking. Heel to toe, heel to toe, heel to toe. I've been to he's had one parole hearing, and I went to that. At the time, I was still 15, mentally. My goal, I didn't go for me. I went for Patricia. I went for every other soul on this planet who he may come in contact with if he's released. Just because I had forgiven him doesn't mean he deserves to go free and walk this planet as a free man. He should be in prison as long as I have to carry 3 bullets in my body that he shot into me. I have to carry those forever. I've made peace with that. But he will be up for parole again in another few years. I will go as many times as I have to. It's a pain, something I don't want to go back to, but it's a tremendous privilege because not everybody physically survives. And even if they physically survive, they don't mentally survive. So it's nothing I look forward to, but it's a huge privilege that I wouldn't miss. To go forward and keep him locked up, hopefully. But it's not for me. He's forgiven, but may he never walk free as long as he's on this earth. My words of encouragement to a survivor, very frankly, you're not done yet. Don't be afraid. Just let it come through. Survival gets you through. Healing makes you whole. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Do it for yourself. Embrace a life worth living, not just in survival mode, but living. I'm grateful that I found the healing journey. Otherwise, I'd still be 15. I'd still be in survival mode, and I hate what trauma has done to me, how it regressed me mentally, but I'm coming forward from that. You don't survive a healing journey. You survive trauma, but you live the healing journey. And that's what's amazing.
was definitely a struggle and a transition to readjust to life or try to reinvent this new life after what had just happened, with it being so traumatic, essentially. What was actually planned for my parents is they were about to go on a vacation for a month, and this certainly interrupted that to some extent, and so they didn't feel comfortable leaving me in my hometown in the house by myself with this person to potentially come around. So they sort of whisked me off with them, and they were extremely private and cautious about it, as they should have been, in terms of not wanting to let anyone know where we were going. Essentially, there was a period of lockdown that happened, is the best way to describe it, of lock everything down, lock your personal information down, don't do anything, don't say anything to anyone about anything, and we're just going to go away for a month now, and we'll try to enjoy it. But it was very difficult to enjoy life at that point in time, whether I was in my own house or on a vacation. I was definitely trying to enjoy myself, but it was difficult. I was definitely down. I think I was more irritable than normal when it came to interacting with people, especially my parents, unfortunately. And I just didn't have the same interest in doing the things I typically enjoyed doing. Like, I would go back to my hometown around the holiday season and always go to this gathering that my high school has, and I just did not want to see people. And I think part of that was because I felt the need to say, well, I'm back here because this thing happened. And that was difficult in the beginning, and it's definitely come a long way since then. It was hard, for sure. Interspersed with the random phone calls at the house that still kept happening, that hadn't happened in 27 years at the house, and all of a sudden there were all these phone calls. Mixed in with, is he going to drive by? Is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? So there were still these aspects of fear that were going on, for sure, and concern of, will he show up? And it's that piece of the unknown that strikes that fear into you. January of 2012 came around, and one day a flyer came in the mail, and it was for an open house for a local martial arts place. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, maybe I should go to that. And so my mom and I decided to go to the open house because they talked about self-defense. And I thought, well, and I was probably exaggerating in my head, but in my head it was, if he ever comes after me, I feel like I need to know some skills as to how to defend myself. If, God forbid, I ever come face to face with him, or he attacks me, essentially. That was my reality. It was, he still might come after me. It was definitely a good thing to have at that time in my life when everything seemed so surreal. So eventually I got a job in my hometown, and I was just, a lot of it just felt like I was just passing the time until the next court date, until the next thing that we would find out, until the trial, essentially, to figure out if he would be fulfilling his probation in the city where we went to university or back in his hometown. Ended up fulfilling his probation in his hometown and went back there. And I knew that once that happened, there would be the possibility for me to return, to go back to school and to pick up my life where it was left off. And then February of 2013 came around, and I finally decided it's time to move back. It's time to, at first, be in the city, to be comfortable again after everything that had happened, and then to eventually go back to my program of study so I could finish it, which was the original plan of, staying in town. When I moved back, I was catching up with an old boss of mine who works at the university as well, and she told me about a conference that was happening for victimization and trauma, and so that's where I met Patricia. And I just went up to her during lunch and the people she was sitting with and said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. I just wanted to say that I'm enjoying the conference." And I kept it on a very general level. I think I just said, I've been through something as well, so it's been helpful to be at the conference and hear other people's stories. And she was just right in tune with that and asked me a little bit more specifically about what happened. And we were talking a little bit more and essentially networked. And that's the moment, I suppose, that I was introduced to the healing journey. Healing was a big part of that conference and a big part of her work. And I also knew that on some level I had started a healing journey, but I didn't really know it. I had taken certain actions I would recognize to start the healing journey, but I didn't know it as a healing journey. In terms of positive differences I see in myself after having gone what I went through and then starting the healing journey, it's definitely been a journey. It's had its ups and downs. I think the biggest thing I can speak to is seeing the difference in me. I think there's this idea that we always want to get over a trauma and go back to our old selves. And I don't believe in that, and I don't think it's true. I think what really happens is you can do your best to take those positive aspects of your old self and bring them through with you, which I think is what I've done, because I've always been very positive and motivated and independent, but there was definitely a downfall or a dip in that. And I think now I'm a little bit more cautious. I think I've been able to balance being independent and being cautious. I think I'm still working on healing and getting forgiveness from, or being able to forgive rather, from the experience I had. And that's a very emotionally trying and psychologically trying journey in the healing journey. In terms of what I went through, there were potential areas to stay stuck, and I didn't, and I pushed through. And in terms of the order of protection, I struggled with asking if I should renew it or not, and then I was told that it was given its maximum time frame, apparently. So it sort of felt like the decision was made for me, and the pros and cons there were, do I pursue something and attempt to have it renewed or extended or even possibly get another one? And for lack of a better term, wake a sleeping dog or stir the pot, or have it be another reminder to him that this happened and that I'm still out there and that I still want him to stay away? Or should I just leave it alone and take the chance that he's fine and he's not thinking about me, because why would I want to give him another reason to? To another survivor of victimization and trauma who needs a healing journey, I think I would start by validating that I know it's difficult firsthand, and I know it's scary, and I think they might have a hard time trusting others. They might have a hard time believing that there's hope for them. They might have a hard time trusting in this intangible thing that is called a healing journey. I mean, it is very tangible once you learn about it, but someone might approach it and not understand what it is. I would say give it a chance. I would say I know it's difficult to sometimes face directly or indirectly, face your trauma head on, but it's something that's really important to do to not necessarily get over it, but understand better what you went through in order to help yourself move forward, because that's the purpose, is moving forward. I think there's a big difference between surviving and thriving. I don't think I know. There's a big difference between surviving and thriving, and when I first heard this phrase of being a victim to a survivor to a thriver, it really resonated with me. And I believed in it right away because that's how I saw myself. for various reasons. I think when you're surviving, you're just doing what you need to do to get by. I believe that we have the capacity, everyone has the capacity to be a thriver